So it says here that she notified you via text, right?
Right.
Directing your attention to the next note from March 8th, 2015. And I know you discussed this with Adam earlier, so I won't belabor this too much. But do you recall that at the time of this entry on March 8th, 2015, Ms. Heard was in Australia?
I would make that assumption based upon my note for March 8th. I state that client will be returning to Los Angeles, accompanied by house manager Ben. I'm paraphrasing there, but yes, I believe she was coming from Australia for this particular entry.
It says here, RN plans to meet client upon arrival. Do you see that?
Oh, yes, I do.
And I think you testified to this earlier. You did see Ms. Heard the next day when she arrived back in Los Angeles. Is that correct?
That's correct. If you look at the entry for March 9th, I refer to meeting her and her friends. So yes, I would have met her in person that day.
Do you recall how long you spent with Ms. Heard that following day?
I don't recall. My note states that I met her for dinner at 2200, which military time would be 10 p.m. I don't recall how long I was with her. So I would assume a couple hours, but again, I'm just making an assumption.
Do you recall observing any injuries to Ms. Heard when you saw her on March 9th, 2015?
No, I don't recall. I don't make note of it, but I don't recall either.
If Ms. Heard had visible injuries, is that something that you would have documented in your nursing notes?
I would assume so.
Do you recall Ms. Heard seeking any medical treatment from you when you saw her on March 9th, 2015?
I don't recall.
If Ms. Heard had sought medical treatment from you on that date, is that something you would have documented in your notes?
Perhaps. If there were requests for medical treatment that differed from sort of day-to-day status, then yes, I might have put it in my notes if I hadn't discussed with Dr. Kipper, but I don't make any reference to it in this particular note.
Could we please pull up what should be I think I would have uploaded as document B. It bears the base numbers Falati 0134.
Is it 14?
I think we covered this before, but just to confirm, is this your email up at the top that says erinboren@hotmail.com? I'm sorry, did you respond?
Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you. I'm sorry. I didn't hear that. Okay. I'd like to direct your attention down to this email from David Kipper on March 9th, 2015. That starts out, Erin, love you too much. Do you recognize this email?
I believe I produced this in reference to the subpoena.
Do you recall receiving this email?
I don't recall, but I do remember reviewing this. I don't think I reviewed it in preparation for today, but probably at the time of the document request, I think I probably reviewed this.
Directing your attention to the middle of the email, do you see where it says, I'm sure JD will let her know we are coming home. I want her to please not see him for a few days until we can get him organized with the hand surgeon and get his meds balanced. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. And JD refers to Mr. Depp in this instance?
Yes.
And the her is Ms. Heard?
Yes.
Did you have an understanding at the time as to why Dr. Kipper didn't want Ms. Heard to see Mr. Depp for a few days?
I don't recall exactly. This might have been in reference to Australia when they, meaning Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard, were separated. I would have to check the dates on that.
Turning back to your notes where Ms. Heard was returning from Australia on March 9, 2015, does that orient you?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that would be the same time period.
Okay. And you alluded to an understanding that Dr. Kipper wanted Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard separated?
Yes.
And what was your understanding as to why they should be separated?
I don't recall specifics. I wasn't present in Australia at that time. I just remember a general sense of a big argument happening and the treatment team deciding that they should not be around each other. So Ms. Heard returned to Los Angeles and Mr. Depp stayed in Australia. For how long, I don't recall.
Next thing here says, please use the excuse that Dr. Kipper insists that JD stay quiet without any distraction for the rest of the week while we get his medication organized and balanced. None of this will be accepted by her, but I will be very upset. You can tell her this. If there is any stress created by a visit, that's premature. Do you see that?
Yes.
Do you have any understanding as to why Dr. Kipper was directing you to provide this excuse to Ms. Heard?
Yeah, and just the general sense that there was a major argument in Australia, which I wasn't present for, and separating because of that.
Did you have any understanding as to why Dr. Kipper stated that none of this will be accepted by Ms. Heard?
I would be speculating on that, but we used joking terminology.
Based on your experience treating Ms. Heard at this time in March of 2015, would you agree, or did you agree with Dr. Kipper that Ms. Heard would not accept not seeing Mr. Depp for a period of time?
I don't know specifically. As I think we talked about much earlier this morning, there was generally a sense of arguing, reconciling, and that sort of cycle happening frequently throughout their relationship.
If we could please go back to the nursing notes, which are Exhibit 2. Could we please go back to the entries from March 2015 that are on the page with the base number 16952? Now, we covered this earlier, but it says in your March 9th, 2015 entry, it says client states she would like to discuss recent events between her and husband with RN in private tomorrow. Do you see that?
Oh, yes, I do.
Directing your attention to the entry for March 10th, 2015. It says RN met client at home at 1600. Does that refresh your recollection that you did meet with her the next day?
No, it doesn't refresh my recollection. However, I would refer to my nursing note.
Do you have any reason to doubt that these notes are accurate?
No.
Do you recall whether Ms. Heard showed any injuries to you on that at that time?
No, I don't recall any injuries.
Okay. Can we go back to Exhibit 2, which is the nursing notes, and specifically the entry for March 25th, 2015? Just go back up to the top of this entry for March 25th, please. And I just want to ask you about one more part of this. It says, states she is concerned about ability to trust fiance following argument on March 23rd, 2015. Do you have any recollection of Ms. Heard expressing concern about her ability to trust Mr. Depp?
I would say I have a generalized memory of there being, as I stated before, jealousy and anxiety issues, including mistrust within the relationship.
Do you recall Ms. Heard ever telling you that she thought Mr. Depp was cheating on her?
No, I don't recall that specifically. I just, as I've said, have a general sense of remembering jealousy being an issue.
If we could, okay, I think, do you recall talking about visiting Ms. Heard and Mr. Depp for Thanksgiving earlier today?
Yes.
Does anything stand out in your mind as from that Thanksgiving dinner that you can recall?
Nothing really stands out other than it was, I sort of have a general sense of it being a really jovial, fun time together.
Do you recall how long you stayed at the dinner?
Not specifically, I would assume a few hours.
Could we please just quickly go to the note from November? This is in Exhibit 2, and the entry for November 26, 2015, which is on page 16954.
Please stand by.
Ms. Falati, directing your attention to the entry for November 26, 2015. You recall seeing this entry earlier today?
Yes.
And I believe you testified that this is the entry from the Thanksgiving dinner that you spent with Ms. Heard and Mr. Depp?
I believe it is.
Do you see in the middle where it says JD appeared calm and coherent?
I do.
Is that accurate to your recollection of that evening?
Again, I don't remember that specifically, but I just remember a general sense of it being a fun, happy evening.
So this is consistent with your recollection of that evening?
I would make that assumption.
And you have no reason to doubt the accuracy of your note, correct? Directing your attention to the December 17th, 2015 entry, will you just take a minute and read this over and confirm whether strike that. Do you recall going and visiting Ms. Heard on December 17th, 2015?
I remember in so much as my nursing notes regarding this night. I can't say that I recall much more than I have here, but I do remember visiting her.
It says here that the client had visible bright red blood appearing at center of lower lip. Do you see that?
Yes.
Did you, other than the blood on Ms. Heard's lip, do you recall seeing any other injuries to her on that date?
I don't recall other than what I state.
Do you recall examining Ms. Heard's lip at all?
I don't think I examined it other than a visual examination. I didn't physically examine her lip.
The note says here, client also stated her head is bruised and that she lost clumps of hair in altercation. RN briefly looked at client's scalp, but was unable to visualize hematomas client had described. Is that what you wrote in your note?
Yes.
If you had observed the bruises or hematomas that Ms. Heard had described, would that have been reflected in your note?
Would assume, but again, I'm not trained in looking for those types of injuries, which is why my note continues that I encourage her to be seen by a professional that is trained to do so.
Can we drop down to the next page? And this is just the end portion of this note. It says here, RN reminds client to hydrate with oral fluids and to limit abstain from alcohol. Client was consuming red wine when with RN left, but assured RN she would consume in moderation. Is that what you wrote in your note?
It is, and I believe I miswrote there. Probably it should say client was consuming red wine when RN left, not with, just to clarify.
Why would you advise Ms. Heard on this occasion to limit, or why did you advise Ms. Heard to limit or abstain from alcohol on this occasion?
I don't recall why I would be speaking to limit or abstain from alcohol on this occasion.
To confirm, based on your nursing notes, you were aware that Ms. Heard claimed to have been injured by Mr. Depp in December of 2015, right?
Correct.
And you went and actually saw her shortly after that alleged incident, correct?
Not that same day, but possibly the following day, I believe.
And you, on that occasion, you observed that she had a bloody lip, correct?
Correct.
And she told you that that was a result of the altercation with Mr. Depp, right?
Right.
If she had had any other injuries on that occasion, would you have recorded them in your nursing notes?
Make that assumption based upon my other notes that reference the blood on her lip.
Could we go back to Exhibit 2 in the nursing notes for April 21st, 2016? Which page number? Picture on page number 16957, where it says, RN socialized with JD for 45 minutes. JD appeared coherent, oriented, and sociable, thought process logical and clear. Do you have any reason to doubt that that's accurate? That's an accurate description of Mr. Depp on that date?
Jessica, I apologize. Can you just use your cursor to help me see the note that you were just reading?
Sorry, I actually don't have control of it, but it's down towards the middle. It says RN socialized with JD at times 45 minutes. JD appeared coherent, oriented, and sociable.
Oh, yes, I see it. Thank you.
Thought process logical and clear. Yes. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was your question regarding that?
Do you have any reason to doubt that that's an accurate description of how Mr. Depp appeared to you on April 21st, 2016?
I have no reason to doubt it. I would stand by my notes.
You knew that Mr. Depp was being treated for substance abuse issues by Dr. Kipper and Nurse Debbie Lloyd, correct?
Yes.
If Mr. Depp had appeared intoxicated on this occasion, is that something that you would have documented?
If it had been outwardly visible for either client, I would have made reference to that.
If we could go back to the nursing notes, Exhibit 2, please. And if we could go down to the entry for May 11th. Thank you. Now, Ms. Falati, we looked at this. You looked at this entry earlier today, correct?
Correct.
Directing your attention to just a couple lines down, it says, client discussed her birthday trip to Coachella Music Festival. Trip was April 22nd, 2016 through April 24th, 2016. Client admits to illicit drug use during the trip and states she ingested mushrooms and MDMA simultaneously, while also consuming alcohol, and states she vomited and was, quote, high for at least 24 hours straight, end quote. Do you see that?
Yes, I do see that.
Did I read that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Do you recall, well, first of all, do you recall Ms. Heard relaying this to you?
I don't recall these specifics that I state here in the note, but I remember sort of a conversation talking about the trip after they had returned.
And this starts out, client admits to illicit drug use. So am I correct that this is based on these notes, this is something Ms. Heard reported to you directly?
Again, I don't remember these specifics. However, my usage of client admits refers to the client reporting something to me.
Had Ms. Heard ever admitted to illicit drug use to you before this time?
I believe in reference to my nursing notes from when I first met her, she alluded to previous substance use.
It says here, RN reminded client that illicit drug use will not be tolerated by medical staff and that any medications or drugs that are not prescribed can interfere and cause adverse effects with her prescribed medication. Client laughed and also reported using illicit drugs, mushrooms, and MDMA on May 9th, 2016, at home with a high-profile male acquaintance. Did I read that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Do you recall Ms. Heard laughing in response to your reminder about illicit drug use?
No, I don't recall that.
In your time caring for Ms. Heard, did you ever see Mr. Depp physically abuse her?
No.
Did you ever see Ms. Heard physically abuse Mr. Depp? Did you ever see Ms. Heard throw anything at Mr. Depp in the time that you cared for her?
No, I did not witness that.
In the time that you treated her, did you ever see Ms. Heard lose her temper?
As we talked about previously, the one incident that I can remember is in London, 2014. Yes, 2014, in regards to her phone being hacked and sensitive material being leaked.
Did you ever feel that Ms. Heard was hostile towards you at any time during your treatment of her?
No.
Did you ever feel like she was ignoring attempts by you to contact her?
Yes, I have a general memory of not often, excuse me, I misspoke, of that happening on more than one occasion where I would reach out and not get a response. I remember feeling frustrated by that.
When had you treated domestic violence victims prior to this time?
The time that I worked with them was in nursing school. I don't want to say the specific place for confidentiality reasons, but it was for domestic violence victims. Sort of a safe house.
Ms. Falati, do you remember when you were treating Ms. Heard that at some point she had a cyst on her eyelid?
Yes, that sounds familiar.
Okay, and do you remember that you had a procedure to have that cyst removed?
Yes.
And was that a surgical procedure to your recollection?
From what I recall, that was handled at an outpatient surgical center. Other than that, I don't know the details of that specific process.
Do you recall whether Ms. Heard had any marks around her eye after having that procedure?
I don't recall. I remember a topical ointment being applied, but I don't recall if there were marks on her eye or not.
At this point,